Hey everyone, Tim Burris here, owner of Chalk Logic, and today I'm going to do another session comparing Datagrip to SQL Server Management Studio, focusing on the T-SQL aspects. So this will be writing and running queries and reviewing the results. So you can see here SQL Server Management Studio, and I suspect that most of the people watching this will have used SQL Server Management Studio, so we're not going to spend very much time in this. Just refreshing your memory on what it looks like. It has some syntax highlighting, query results at the bottom. And then for the rest of this, we're going to jump into Datagrip and just talk about how it's different, the things that are better and the things that maybe are not better. So as we switch over to Datagrip, the first thing that's most obvious is dark mode. So it's cosmetic, but man, I love having dark mode. It's 2022. I don't understand how SQL Server Management Studio does not yet have a dark mode. There are some third-party plugins that you can download and install for Management Studio that'll give you dark mode. I haven't found one yet that works perfectly in all situations, or at least even in most situations. Every one that I've used seems to have a problem with this dialog or table window, or something about it is just completely unusable in certain situations. But the Datagrip dark mode looks beautiful. So I love that. It was not enough for me. That alone was not enough for me to purchase Datagrip, but it is nice to have. Second of all, the thing that you notice right off is the keyword highlighting. Management Studio does have keyword highlighting. It's just that Datagrip has a bit more. Specifically, probably the most useful one is the column highlighting. So when you have a query like we have here, the items in purple are columns that it has recognized. And if you get the column wrong, then it'll be red. Now, Management Studio will give you a little red squiggly underneath it if you type it wrong. So, I don't want to suggest that there's nothing in Management Studio for this, but having the columns go purple, showing that it matched up with one of the sources in your query is pretty nice. I definitely like that. Outside of those cosmetics, one other thing you might have already noticed is just hovering. So when I hover over this table, I get the full definition. When I hover over this store procedure, I'll get the store procedure definition, and I can scroll over it. So that's pretty nice. I can control click to go into that store procedure in case I want to grab some of the code for it, or if I want to make changes to it. So those are some nice enhancements right there on the surface. Also, you can see right here the store procedure. This is Datagrip inferring that based on the order of the parameters, this is the begin date and that's the end date and the area ID. So just to show you, so if I were typing this out, activity roll up, and I just start typing my parameters in, there's 4 of them. I did not type any of the parameter names, but when I press enter or when I leave focus on it, then Datagrip is going to just show me what the parameters is. It's not actual text. I can't highlight it, but it's showing me what those parameters are. I don't do a ton of store procedures these days, but when I'm in an older database that I worked in where I did write a bunch of store procedures, or I'm working in someone else's database that has a bunch of store procedures, this can be very, very useful, being able to see those parameter names. I know that you can name them out yourself, but even if you're in a store procedure and you're looking at the code that you wrote 10 years ago where you did not explicitly name the parameters, just having this kind of UI sugar that shows you the parameter names is pretty nice. So aside from how things look, let's talk about actually doing some work. So this query file, this is something that's pretty common for me. I might come in to solve a problem or to evaluate some data or working on some new functionality, and I'm writing a bunch of select statements to do a bunch of different things, usually across the same or similar, related tables. So I have this one query window, bunch of queries, and in Management Studio, when you press F5 or press the run button, it's just going to run them all. But in Datagrip, when you press F5 or press the run button, it's going to by default suggest that you run just the query that you're on. So if I press enter, it just runs just that query. If I press F5, I can easily press the down button and say, yeah, man, just go ahead and run it all. That's what I want. So boom, I can run everything, and I'll get all those results. So, and it's not just the line that I'm on. So if I click on this query here, You can see Datagrip already has outlined it in green. It knows where this statement begins and ends. So when I press F5, it's going to suggest, do you just want to run just this one query? And I press enter to run it. Again, I could choose all of it. So it's taking, like many features, it's taking me quite a bit of time to get used to this, because if I'm doing this in Management Studio, I'm typically coming here, highlighting F5. Now I want to run this one. I'm going to highlight F5. So that's my habit, but I'm finally starting to get the hang of just pressing F5, enter, F5, enter. So I like this feature. A big learning curve, because for so many years I've been highlighting individual statements. If you do highlight the individual statement and press F5, it won't ask you. It'll just run that one. So that's kind of nice, that even if you're stuck in the habit of highlighting the statement, you're not going to get nagged with some other dialogue. It'll just run it for you. There are a bunch of other features, in this IDE. Many of them I have not discovered yet or gotten the hang of, but one of them that I like to use is if I want to expand out this column list. So I have select star for all the columns. If I press Alt Enter, then I can choose expand column list, and it'll give me all the columns for that query. So I really like that. Because usually I'll start with select star, then I'll want most or all the columns, so I'll expand it out, and then I'll just strip out the ones that I don't actually need. So that's a pretty nice feature, being able to take that asterisk and convert it to be all the columns. And now when it gets to actually reviewing the results, so let's say that I run both of these statements here. Let me go ahead and close out all these. Probably should have done this before I tried to demo what I'm about to demo, but bear with me. Alrighty, so when you first run this query, or these two queries, when I run two queries here, boom, I get two result sets. I like and don't like this feature. The results are split into separate tabs. I actually think this is the better way, the right way. But in SQL Management Studio, when you run those two queries, you see both results in the same panel at the same time. So you'd see one result set and the other result set below it. And it's been that way for so long, 20 years. And I'm having a difficult time getting used to the fact that when I run this, the results are going to be in separate tabs. Again, I do think it's the right way. I think I will get used to it. And I think once I do, I'll be really happy with this feature. But for now, it's a big difference, because I'll run this and I'll only see one result set, and I'll think I thought I ran 3, and I remember, oh wait, there's 3 different results. So learning curve, like many things. When you do have your results down here, once you've gotten them, one or more, there's a refresh button, a reload button, and this will re-execute the query that you ran. So regardless of what's selected up here, if I highlight this, if I hit refresh, it's going to rerun the query. So if data has changed since you ran it, there can be value. I haven't gotten in the habit of using this. I almost always still go up and rerun my query, but when I remember to use the refresh button, it's pretty nice. So if you can get used to using this, it could be good, especially if you've already changed that query, or if you have you have a big list here and you don't want to go select it from there. I think there's going to be some value in the refresh. Also in the query window, sorting. It is very useful to be able to sort. Of course, I chose a result set with probably no sortable data. Oh, here we go, some dates. That's good. So you can write an order by in 10 seconds. Not a big deal, but in 2 seconds you can just click the sort button. So I'm finding this to be very valuable. I don't find myself having to write order bys for no reason when I can just apply a sort. Next up is the query history. So every time you run a query, or it's listed in the output window. So every query that I've run in this session is listed here. Management Studio has something similar. They will show you how many records, and they'll show you when you ran it, but it doesn't show the actual SQL that you ran, and it doesn't show the computed time that it's spent running that result set. So I find this output window to be pretty useful. I will sit here and evaluate. Where I use it the most is I make changes to this block, and I rerun it, and it doesn't give me what I wanted. And so now I want to get back and compare it to the one that I had before. In SQL Server Management Studio, I probably just Control Z, undo everything. This could be 50 changes. Control Z back to the original one, copy it, and then Control Y to get back to the query that I had, and and then paste it in, and I'll have both. But now with Datagrip, I make all my changes. I decide I really do want that other query that I ran. I can jump to the console. I can grab it, copy it, paste it. So I don't have to Control Z to undo and then Control Y to get back. It's just kind of convenient, I guess. And I'm probably underselling the value of the time. You're trying to work on the performance of a query, and you've run it a couple of times, and you start to think back, wait, did it take 4 seconds or 8 seconds to run the first time? You're looking at it as 6 seconds now, and you're trying to think back. It's nice to have it on the output. You can just jump in there, see what it was the first time you ran it, of course, and then next up I'll switch over to another query window. I have this query here. I'm going to demonstrate updating data and comparing data. So before I compare, I'm going to make a copy of this table. So I'm going to select star into temp2. We'll just create a new table called temp2 from temp there. So now I'm just going to create this copy. Boom. So now all of my data also exists in temp2. So that way, whenever I make changes to the temp book customers table, we can compare it against what it was. So a few weeks ago, I had a customer who needed to clean up some phone numbers, and we didn't need to develop a solution for it. We just needed to go in and clean up a handful of them. Now you can write update statements for them, and you'd write update statements to do batch changes. But let's say you just have a few records that you need to change, and you know what they should be changed to. This company was a local company, so all their area codes were the same. So if they did not enter the area code, then we know it should have been 555. So it's pretty simple. Just come in, F2 to change, type in your new phone number, and do the same, fix this guy, and great. So the highlighted blue, the things I've changed, but it's important to note that nothing has actually changed yet. The underlying data set has not been changed. So you shouldn't be worried that you're going to accidentally type something in here and have it override your data. You make your changes, but then you have to actually submit it. So I make those changes and I hit submit, and now I've actually made those changes. And of course, they no longer match my where clause, which was looking for phone numbers that didn't match this pattern. So after I updated, they left the result set because they're no longer my result set. In Management Studio, you would have written this query, and then you would have had to go to the Edit 200 Rows page, adjust your where clause to, or either just find it, either way, adjust your where clause, make those changes, and then come back. It's not going to take you an hour, but it is very convenient for the few times when you might want to just change the data right there in your results and have it pushed up. So now that we have made some changes, we can compare what the data was to what it is now. So let's go ahead and select phone 3 and the ID from the temp2, and we'll just use the same filter. Same filter. We'll run both of these, and so we have our two results down here. And Datagrip has a compare result set option. So we can hit this little compare with option. We can choose which result set we want to compare it with. We'll choose this one, and on the left side we can see that there were these two records, and those two records no longer exist here. If I've done a better example where they weren't being removed from the query results, then what we would actually see is it will highlight the individual cells that have made changes. So there's a bunch of features of compare that we're not going to get into. The point is that this functionality actually exists. I think in Management Studio, I would run this query. I would highlight all of these. I would copy them. I'd paste them into WinMerge, and then I would just compare them. But it's kind of nice to just be able to do it right here in the tool. Another little nifty thing in Datagrip is it has kind of a safety net for your delete statements. So in SQL Server Management Studio, and even now still, when I go to write a delete statement, I would typically start with delete from temp2 where XYZ, because I don't want to accidentally run my delete statement before I've applied my where clause and delete all the data. But in Datagrip, if you don't have your where clause on there, when you hit run, it's going to tell you it's an unsafe query. Delete statement doesn't have a where clause. Now, if this is what you actually meant to do, then sure, you can just press the execute button and you'll execute it. But this is a kind of a cool safety net that I'm not taking advantage of yet, because I'm still in the habit of typing my dashes to comment it out before I get my where clause. But it is nice to know it's there. A few other things about Datagrip that are pretty handy. One of them is the tabs stay open. So this is not a crazy new feature that Datagrip has created. No one else has it. Many tools have it, like Notepad++, and Postman, and many tools, a lot of browsers. When you close Datagrip and you reopen it, these two tabs will still be there. You don't have to save them. In Management Studio, you say you're in there working, you get 3, 4, 5 query windows open. You're done for the day. You're going to shut the machine down. You try to close it. You have to save them or either hit no on them because you don't want them. It is kind of annoying. It's nice that Datagrip doesn't ask you. You just close it. When you open it up tomorrow, the queries are there. It's pretty handy. Now, of course, if you need to save it. But if I close this at the end of the day, if it gets lost, if Datagrip loses it and can't open it, it's not the end of the world. I'll just rewrite the selects. Not a big deal. It's just a convenience thing. It seems simple, but it's pretty convenient to have. And so with that, I'll get into a few of the negatives. And the first two are both negatives and positives. So JSON data. I end up working with a fair amount of JSON data. And in Datagrip, it doesn't recognize JSON data from SQL Server. I think that it does for some other databases that have an actual JSON data type, but for SQL Server, you have to use an nvarchar or a varchar, whatever, and you just put your JSON in there, and so there's no data type that says this is JSON. But they do have this feature where you can select this, you can do Shift Enter, and you can you can view this value over here with wrap. It's still not formatted, but let's find a better query with better JSON for us to see. So we'll choose this one. This guy here has a lot of JSON, and it's just wall of text. They have this option where you can right click, you can choose highlight options, and choose JSON. Beautiful. Look at this. It's well formatted, color coded. It's great. And then now every row that you click will have that formatting. What I don't understand is why they can't just provide this without you doing that, because as soon as you run another query, if you can actually select the query and run it, you lose it. You have to go and do this again, and that's annoying and pretty much makes this feature almost not. There's no shortcut for it, so you're gonna have to do that manually each time. Now, if you're gonna run the result set and review 50 or 100 rows, okay, I see the value in it, but not having it more accessible is quite a pain. I tried to look it up on their site, and it looked like it was a feature that's there by default. The only thing, but it doesn't work for me. So the only thing I can figure is because Microsoft SQL Server doesn't have a JSON data type, it doesn't know it's JSON. Now, this is a problem that could be overcome. I know they could overcome it. Other tools overcome it. In fact, this is not a demo for Azure Studio, but they have it. this little tool. So when you have JSON data, when you click it, boom, it shows it. This thing is fast. So maybe we'll do Azure Data Studio on another day. But today we're doing Datagrip. So there are a bunch of great things about Datagrip, but sometimes I'm just scratching my head over features like this that I think would be extremely valuable, but you just really can't make use of them. So that's one it's good that they have it. It's bad that it's so hard to use. The next one is automatically applying. Let's just get all of these. automatically applying a top X rows. So when I run this query, there are a ton of records in there. I don't know how many, but by default, Datagrip limits you to 500 rows. Now, on the surface, there is a positive about this. It makes your query fast. Like, it only got the first 500 rows, so everything is fast. However, for me, it typically will hide performance issues. I built this query, I run it just to see how fast it is. Did it execute fast? And the answer is yes, it executed fast. However, if you were getting all the records back, you would find that the query was terrible. That adding top 500 can dramatically improve the performance of your query, but it's hiding the fact that your query sucks. So, you can go and change this to all, and then you can get everything. There might be some option somewhere where I can turn this off. If I go and find it, I don't know. I mean, I'm torn. I think there's some value in it, and then I think there's not value in it. So I don't know. I guess make your own decision. And now I'll get into a couple of negatives about Datagrip. One of them is the wasted space. So right here between my query window where I've written my query and my results, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of nothing. I know there's something there, but I just feel like they could have done something and not wasted 4 lines of space for all this. I don't know what they could have done, but something. Management Studio only has 2, so this bugs me. It annoys me how much wasted space is here. Similarly, this little services window over here, I don't know what it's for. I don't get it. I don't understand why I would use this versus using the tabs, but it is annoying that it's taking up all this space over here when I could just be using it. So I don't get it. I know this is probably because I'm coming from Management Studio. They didn't have something like this, and there's, I'm sure, a great reason for it. For me, it's just a waste of space. Next up is Control N. So I like to create a new query window by hitting Control N in Management Studio. Now when you hit Control N, you choose Query Console, and you get a new query, and it starts in a different database. It always goes to master. I use this so much. I'm frustrated by having to, I can't just Control New and have it create a new Query Console. I have to use their Control Shift Q if I want to do that. And then once I do that, I still have to change my database. So that annoys me. Next is column selecting. So in Management Studio, and most, I guess this is probably a Microsoft thing, and maybe a lot of this is because I'm a Microsoft Stack person. I use Microsoft tools, and these shortcuts like Control N for new and things like that are Microsoft specific, and they don't really translate the same over to tools like Datagrip that are targeting all platforms. But column selection, if you're not familiar, is where you can Control Shift and then press the down arrow and select a column. So in Datagrip you can't do that with Control Shift. You have to you can hold Control Shift and then click, which you can do in other languages as well, and then you can highlight all these columns. If you're not familiar, this is why you would use it. So let's say you alias this as F, and you wanted to go ahead and add the prefix. You can highlight all of them and do that. So you can't do Control Shift down. You have to use the mouse. I'll get into it. There's an alternate way, but that's kind of a pain too. But I will say what they do have in this is they are using the new advanced column selection, which a lot of tools are starting to do. And that is, so if you highlight the entire word and hit Control Shift to the right, you'll get only that word. Historically, when you would do that, all the columns would go to the longest ones. You would highlight all of this space here, but now you can highlight just this selection, Control C, then you could as like that. I mean, I know that doesn't seem very valuable. Who would do that? But let's imagine that all of these are string fields or numbers or dates or something like that, and you're going to wrap them in is null, right? You're going to do is null. And then make them all empty string. Of course, these are not all strings, but that might be a case where you would use it. And so I end up using this feature a lot. I wish the keyboard shortcut worked for it, which is why I'm still talking about this right now after you've been watching this video for 30 minutes on this subject. They do have this weird thing where you can do Alt-Shift-Insert, and then you can press Shift and go down. The problem is it works 1 out of 3 times. I think there might be a time delay on it, or there might be maybe if you press another key, but before I did this demo, I was trying it because I only found this feature this morning that you could do Control-Shift-Insert to get this going. And like 1 out of 3 times, I do Control-Shift-Insert and look, and it just doesn't work. That's it for my list of cons. So to quickly review all the pros and cons, I'll go with the pros. Dark mode, love it. Keyword highlighting, love it. F5, I really like the F5 for choosing which query you want to run versus all of them. The IntelliSense for inner joining, which I think I forgot to cover actually. So now I'm going to do it right now. I have this select statement. Select from this profile. It has a child table, which there's a foreign key from the child table to this table. And when I start typing my inner join, Datagrip knows that foreign key exists, and it suggests that I might want to join on that table, and I can hit tab and have it finish out. So I like that. It's very handy, and it doesn't just do foreign keys though. It defaults to a foreign key, but it actually makes some other suggestions of other things you might want to join on as well. You could join this other table by the name. They don't always make sense. Sometimes it's kind of ridiculous, but the foreign key ones, it's very handy to have it doing that. So that's one of the things I like. The hover over tables. Love it. Store procedure parameters, where it shows you what parameter each value is going to go in, is great. Mouse control click to go to the definition is pretty good. Multiple results, I list that as a pro, even though, as a benefit, even though I'm still trying to get used to being multiple result sets. But eventually, I think that'll be in the pro side. The refresh button being handy. Being able to sort, pretty handy. The query history, very useful. Next up, compare. Comparing the data that we did here, it's okay. I don't use it a ton, but it's pretty nice. Being able to edit the data here, that's pretty good for those times when you need to do it. I like having the delete safety net. I like the fact that the tabs all stay open. I like the fact that you can format this JSON. I just wish it was a little more natural to get to it without so many clicks. And last pro is the filter of 500 records, which is also a con. And then the rest of my cons are all this wasted space for these rows, this wasted space for the service guy. The fact that Control-N does not keep the database. The fact that you can't use Alt-Shift-Down. That's all I'll say about that. And that's it. Overall, Datagrip is a huge improvement over SQL Server Management Studio. So even though I have some negatives to say about it, I paid for it for a reason. And that's because I used it for a little while, and I think it's far more productive than using SQL Server Management Studio. So if you're using SQL Server Management Studio and you're doing a lot of Microsoft SQL Server database work, I encourage you to give Datagrip a try. They have a free trial. Give it a run, see if it works for you. There are some other areas outside of query windows that I have some strong pain points with. So my decision to buy Datagrip didn't come lightly, and I'll try to cover some of those in another video. But from a pure day-to-day writing SQL queries, it's way, way better than SQL Server Management Studio, though I guess you could argue it's not hard to be better than Management Studio, which hasn't changed in 20 years. So I guess there is that. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you guys for your time.